She wants to know if she's a human or not. And of course, she's not a human. He breaks it down, but again, it's such a powerful thing. It's the emotion, the way on how they both communicate with each other, the way on how they're actually the way she acts. It makes her a really brilliant character to hope for. One of the most powerful things about character caring, for us caring about a character, is to make sure the character is in some way not only having his own wish, his own motivation that should be personal, but in some way to have his innocence. Like innocent characters who are unjustly crippled in a way are brilliant. And this is where she shows him the photo with her mother, trying to maybe prove to him or herself that she's not a replicant. Of course, he knows that she is, but she's touched by the fact that she wants to be a human so much more. She's not like the other replicants that are just, like cyborgs or robots, like the baddie, for example. So it's a very interesting thing, and their dynamics is really one of the things that makes this movie brilliant. Even though her character arc is not that big, the way on how that tear rolls down her eye, and she looks at him realizing, okay, there's got to be something more. I can't just be that machine that has no soul. And this is very interesting. Really good. And then she understands that there's a lot of subtext out there. I'm not a great fan of subtext. Like in the new movie, there's a lot of subtext, which really doesn't add any meaning. But you understand the meaning of each scene here that actually makes it very beautiful. So later on, of course, now so far we've gotten like 30 minutes into it. Despite a few issues with the pacing, the atmosphere, the character introduction, it all works out brilliantly. And then there's like a real drag in here where we are actually switching the POV to one of the replicants that have escaped. Not very interesting, really, because that replicant in particular does not have her own personality. She just is there to be a friend with the main baddie. And, yeah, well, that's true. So she gets to know this man who is making toys. He also doesn't have any special personality about himself. And all of that in itself is not too bad. It just doesn't really add anything to the main theme of the story, which could have been what makes the difference between human and replicants. Why are we different? Why they can't feel emotion? Why maybe some of them can? See, so up here, we realize that, okay, she obviously makes him to invite her. He invites her because he feels like she's nice. And we actually don't even know if he realizes or suspects if she's a replicant or not. And why does she do it? Like, does she want to just sleep with her? Or there's something more? We don't understand her motivation, except of the fact that, she wants him to get them into the baddie, into the camp of the main programmer later on. It's just the big problem here is that we don't get so much of the personality. And then there's the scene with the unicorn, a scene which a lot of people say it was to show that maybe Deckard is a replicant. I don't see how that scene shows it, really. I mean, I could just dream about a unicorn that I read in the book, and if that projects in my mind, it doesn't make me a replicant. So of course it's an interesting scene, but in the context of him just staring at a piano, it doesn't add anything to me. I don't get to see. He sees a photo, and now we go to another plot point. But in particular, the unicorn scene just doesn't add so much to me. Of course, then we have a very interesting way with him just looking at a photograph and finding out something hidden inside. This is always a great thing. It's just that this is the only clue that he's gotten so far, and we're already 45 minutes into the movie. He started to investigate in move 10, so for 35 minutes, we really don't get anything until now, until here there is this mark on the woman's neck that he finds. And so there's just not too much. Of course, as the story progresses, we see him going. Now, within the next 2 minutes, of course, he finds out that it's a snake. Okay, he finds out that it's basically an almost artificial snake. So and then there is another interesting thing. Instead of actually us spending time with the main characters, with Rachel end with him finding more clues and questioning his reality or the opinion that he had for himself. It just ends up with a scene that's about another replicant with no real motivations, with basically just trying to hide amongst the people, but not actually doing it very well, because if you're going to hide, you're definitely not going to pose as a dancer in public so that everybody can find you. I mean, okay, there's this saying that you can hide best in the most public place, but come on, they're really hiding. They want to hide literally, not to see if a theory of just trying and hide in the most public place will work. So it's really a little bit forced, and it's just he stumbles upon things. That's one of the biggest issues of this movie, that he stumbles upon things here and there instead of really finding and digging deeper into this. That would have created a great plot. This is a great plot point that would have been quite powerful to follow. Okay, of course she runs, he goes after her, he kills her, and then the baddie just shows up there, after he kills her, the baddie, her friend or whoever this is, just like the other replicant shows up and he gets beaten. And see, it's just a little bit kind of forced, I could say. Not necessarily, but really, it's not like a real plot progression. We just have the number of scenes happening conveniently, so that we have the character going from A to B to C, without really him going A, B to C, but rather the story sort of forcing him in these situations. Of course, he's an active character because he does things. I'm just saying that, it could have been a lot more interesting plot-wise if we had him discover those things, and a lot more things, I think, would have been really effective. But okay, obviously, Rachel saves him. That's beautiful. And then they have this, I would say, the most powerful scene in the whole movie, where really they bond. And it's a very interestingly made. I mean, it's not like the general bonding. It's a talk that they have about their own fate and the feelings. And then of course here we get the most powerful idea that maybe he's a replicant as well. So we could see that glow in his eyes as well, in his pupils. So it's quite powerful. And then of course she leaves, which is very interesting, because her leaving gives her an idea that these two can never be together, even though they're obviously meant for each other. His roughness and her innocence, ultimately, one of the most powerful, in my opinion, movie scenes that I've seen. This is a really integral romance that, if I feel were explored a lot more, it would have been extremely emotional. That adds to the atmosphere and to the injustice that maybe these replicants are given. I know this, in the end of the movie, we have that sentence by the main baddie that all they want is just a normal life. But, we don't get to explore that, except of that one scene, earlier, when Rachel says that she wants to feel like a human. Of course, she is incredible because of that personality. But then all the other replicants feel like they're really just there. Nothing, makes them connected to the theme. And the theme really is, or at least should be, what makes a difference between a replicant and a real man? And why are you so much different? Of course, there are hints here and there, but it's not detailed. That's the problem. When it's not detailed, it just doesn't hit emotionally all that well. You see, and it's trying to do just that when for example, if you look at the Christopher Nolan movies, one of the things about his sci-fi is that he details a lot. And we're not talking about moral talk and preaching to the audience, but rather with the character motivations, like Rachel's motivation of being a human, her feeling of her, making her to feel that, making us to feel the way we feel about her, is incredible enough. We have the same sort of emotional talk by the baddie in the end of the movie, but until that point, he's just a baddie. Who kind of cares about this replicant. We don't know why. Is it his girlfriend or whatever? Anyway, going forward, of course, they convince the guy to go with them, to help them actually reach the main inventor Of course, he reaches them, and of course we have a scene that just like he tries to convince him that they can't save his life, and he just he just kills the guy. So it's completely pointless scene that just adds nothing really to the dilemma. It could have been a very powerful scene that connects the concept of creator and creation. Why would the creation want to kill the creator? He can't do it just because the creator made it so that the life expires in 4 years. He did it for a reason. So why would the baddie be that upset? And yet, I believe that this could have been a very emotional scene if it was done differently. So much of the plot of this movie is replaced by an atmosphere, connected with a lot of philosophical scenes. But most of the philosophical scenes really don't hit home because they're too generic. The characters are not given the motivation. They're not detailing their motives. They're not really trying or discovering many special things, except of the Rachel scenes, and I'd say, and a couple others. For example, the Deckard character, except of his infatuation with Rachel because of her innocence, he doesn't have much of a character growth, so to speak. Well, anyway, we get a lot of, different scenes, and now we have, of course, the last 30 minutes of them being in that building, and sort of trying to he's trying to beat them. Of course, they're trying to escape. It's a pretty entertaining scene. I wouldn't mind it because so far we've built up so much, but it just really lacks the emotional punch. I mean, this is one of the things that I didn't like quite a bit, was that she tries to kill him, and she doesn't get to kill him. She knocks him down, and instead of finishing him off, she just goes away so that she could give him time to recover, and then she just strolls back in so that he can shoot her. I mean, this is a bit stupid. Of course, no special meaning is added to that scene except to just entertain. And again, the direction here and the lighting is simply magnificent. Everything, starting from the way it's shot, the actual settings, and more importantly, the lighting, is simply brilliant, which makes it for a perfectly directed movie. And then, of course, once again, we have another sequence of the baddie going against the good guy. There's one scene where it shows that he sees her dead, but we never realize how he felt about her. Not earlier, there was no setup between them. We don't see why he cares about her, about the replicant, the woman that got dead. And really, we don't understand why he's even so mad. She obviously tried to kill him. So it's kind of forced, and again, doesn't have too much of an emotional, impact. The reasoning is just, it's there, but the motivations are quite unclear. That, I would say, is the major problem. Now, going forth, of course, there is the major breakdown, and then, of course, we see Deckard. Now, this is a very interestingly constructed, I'd say, final breakdown, which has a structure to itself, which is quite beautiful. Not a lot of movies do it. There is a little suspense because we could see those separated in a way, so the suspense really isn't there as it could have been, and it's just like the bad guy's chasing the good guy for practically no reason except to revenge his girlfriend. Was it his girlfriend or just one of the other replicants? Again, it's just so that we can have a finale. And essentially, when this is all over, when that whole sequence is over, I'd say that comes the most engaging and thought-provoking scene, where we see the bad guy actually throwing his hand and catching and saving the good guy in the end, so that he could tell him that it's all useless. He's not going to save his life, but it's pretty interesting. So he has seen a lot of things, and all of that will be lost, in the time. But evil just for the sake of evil is not good. Killing for the sake of killing is not good. They have something human inside them, and I find this brilliant also with the white bird that he actually caught and he didn't kill, which I thought he will, because of the badness that was shown earlier in the movie. He actually lets it go. He helps Deckard, and then Deckard starts to see how things really are. And this is probably the most impactful scene, which is a great ending. A lot of movies don't have that kind of ending where we see that the bad guy is not really that bad. It's just that earlier in the movie he was portrayed like this evil person who just likes killing, and who likes just chasing around, just being bad. And it didn't need to be like that. It could have been a moment where basically Deckard realizes that he's been, he's the reason, perhaps. In a true noir movie, it would have been that Deckard realizes that he's the reason for this man to die, and he wasn't that bad after all. Maybe it's his fault. In any case, certain missed opportunities definitely happen, but it is a beautiful movie, and it has some really powerful, staggering moments that make it shine over many, many similar movies. It's beautifully directed, and of course, then we see Rachel that actually sleeps, and the fact that he sees maybe she's still in danger. So we have that ambiguous finale where he realizes, okay, I'm going rogue. I'm going to help her no matter what. Maybe I'm going to be chased, maybe I'm going to be killed, but I have to help her. So he decides to help her. Overall, I think, a lot of this movie is, a masterpiece. It definitely changed the genre back then, and it still holds because of its brilliant qualities. Yes, it lacks in pacing. The characters don't have that many they don't actually have any arcs besides Deckard, who possibly realizes in the end that maybe he is he has to actually help them instead of killing them. But it's a very small thing, and we don't even realize why or what kind of struggle he has in himself, So anyway, it's a pretty good film. It has a lot of qualities that make it stand out above all others. And for the time, for the 1982, where we know that a lot of the older movies had a bit of a slow pacing, I can only admire the great master, Ridley Scott, for really setting up the atmosphere, which really made it feel like, these dragging scenes weren't really dragging, but they were sort of building up the world. Could have been explored a lot better, and still that scenery could have been there, of course. But for what it is, I feel that the movie delivers, and it makes people to really see the power of sci-fi when it's developed in the right way, when a lot of imagination is applied to let us see through the lens of the people of the future.